Well in, well out. It is time for us to take a look at what is coming in from the world of international business, the international scene. On the global scene, the SMB across borders, a lot is coming out. Besides the geopolitical situation and tension across the European continent, that is former countries of former members of the USSR, that is Ukraine, Russia. When you look at the other situations coming in from business, a lot, and bigger questions that are supposed to be answered here. Let's first look at now what is coming in from the African countries. And when you look at the African countries are responding to global inflation. And this is a very big chance. This is actually a very big topic and a very big situation that the African continent is under. Clearly, when you to look back at a situation, for example, previously in the last 2 years, the African countries were actually feeling a pinch with the fact that when the global crisis hits, let's say the prices and let's say war and all that, we always feel the pinch. One, the prices tend to increase. Then secondly, besides the increase of the prices, we end up feeling, you know, we end up feeling like we are left out. And unless when there's always a plan B. Now, when we look at in Africa, the governments are stepping up their efforts to mitigate the impact of what would come out of the Russia and Ukraine war. Remember, the UN estimated that Africa will actually feel a pinch, more so when it comes to hunger crisis. For example, in a situation whereby, let's say, the Ukraine and Russia war is ongoing, then people will actually face quite some good challenges. Now, for example, food, let's say the prices of wheat, the prices of fuel. So these are some of the key things where the UN was actually saying that there is an estimation that Africa will feel the pinch in the long run. Now, when you look at the situation here, the African countries, the governments, have realized that it's time for them to step out and look for plans in case this war hits the economic landscape and automatically tarnishes the African continent. Now, according to the UNCTAD data, no less than 25 African countries import more than a third of their wheat from Russia and Ukraine. And 15 import more than half, and 2 countries, Benin and Somalia, import 100%. So how is Africa trying to limit the impacts of this crisis? So when you look at Benin and Somalia, their target market for wheat is definitely Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine and Russia are the world's leading wheat exporters. That's on record. And most of the African countries target them in terms of wheat exports. Now, let's look at Ghana. Let's break down some of the African countries that are responding to global inflation. Ghana presents robust digital economy. Now, Ghana recently embarked on the transformation of several public services. An identity card service as a biometric passport and tax identification number. In this way, the country intends to mobilize domestic revenue and prosecute all those who evade taxes before the end of the year. And this digital policy is actually to track down some of the situation whereby it will help in revenue. Now, in the long run, when you hit back to the global crisis of inflation, is that sometimes once prices are high, it actually affects the taxes. How? Most of the people shun away from buying a lot on the market. They will actually buy only their needs. They now they only buy the necessities. They end up not buying a lot of things, let's say the luxury, and at the end, this hinders economic growth. Now, let's also take a look at Burundi. Burundi's coffee sector struggles to rebound. Now, Burundi is actually facing a very big pitch, besides the fact that we're looking at the ongoing global crisis. Burundi is actually indebted to the East African community. Remember, it's also a member state of the East African community, which recently received a new member in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, in Burundi, coffee accounts for nearly 40% of export resources. We're now looking at how the African countries are trying to step up on the issue of global inflation. How are they going to fight it? Now, Burundi's coffee accounts for about 40% of export resources and supports 8 million Burundians. With the failure of the privatization of the sector, the state has been running the sector since 2019. But production figures remain low, dropping from 34,000 to 6,000 tons in a period of 2021-2022. That's a very huge drop, and they are struggling to rebound it. That is why they are economically struggling. So this means they're going to feel a pinch in the levels of inflation in the long run. Coffee growers' discontent is growing, as well as the lack of traceability of all actors involved in the coffee sector. That is for the people in Burundi. If Burundi cannot compete on the same level as big African coffee producers like Kenya or Ethiopia, the country still secured a place among the top 40 coffee producing countries in the world. So, further yet, if you had to look at the failure of the liberalization of the sector, the government took the decision in 2020 to re-engage in this coffee sector. However, it is still struggling to get back on track given the results of the 2021-2022 campaign. Now, let's look at the level of production. Production figures still remain low, dropping from 34,000 to 6,000 tons for the 2021-2022 growing season. And after the failure of the, so when you look at several factors would be at the origin of the decline in its activity. And when you take back a little bit in Burundi, it was during the 1993 crisis that coffee production began to fall. As years later, the production of green coffee barely reached 10,000 tons. Burundi is still facing some of those challenges. Well, away from Burundi, let's take our eyes to what is coming in from the southern part of Africa. That is with the Republic of South Africa. South Africa is eyeing a new mining boom. Let's check this out. South African mining is a major source of foreign exchange and jobs. The country's minerals are key to its economic growth and recovery strategy. So many of the South African mineral reserves are estimated to be worth around $2.5 trillion, and they remain unexploited as of now. Pretoria is apparently now seeking a twofold increase in investment in the sector of mining by 2030. A commodity boom, partly fueled by the pandemic and the conflict in Ukraine, has raised investor confidence and should drive big and small miners to the country. That is to the country, South Africa. Now, nowhere is South Africa hoping to make its case as the most attractive mining investment destination than at the upcoming Mining Indaba conference. So from May 9th to May 12th, the mining community will be looking to the future with the overarching theme. Now, let's look at the overarching theme of the South African mining, which is evolution of African mining, which includes investing in the energy transition, the ESG, and the economies. President Cyril Ramaphosa has identified mining as a key sector in South Africa's post-pandemic recovery plan. And one of the things Pretoria is doing is to change the narrative about the industry, emphasizing that there is more to coal, gold, platinum, and diamond. So when you look at what is coming in from South Africa there, looking at South Africa being one of the rich mineral countries or mining countries there, bigger questions here. Now, one of the things Pretoria is doing is to change the narrative, like I was actually highlighting, that they are all going to emphasize more on coal, gold, platinum, and diamond, as investors are being asked to also venture into metals such as chrome, vanadium, and titanium. Now, but growth has stalled in recent years. Between 2010 to 2018, the industry saw a 10% loss in output, 50,000 jobs wiped out, and a 45% decrease in annual capital investment. Now, there is also a lack of innovation. Bad rail and port infrastructure and unreliable electricity are to blame for the damage. Now, there is also situations that is actually coming in that Hans Kupers from Boston Consulting Group joins the program with insights on South Africa's plan to breathe new momentum into its mines. Definitely. Now, let's turn our eyes to what is coming in from Egypt. We have two stories and two business reports coming in from Egypt. And this particular one is a report from the International Monetary Fund, which is set to rescue Egypt from the Ukraine shock. And when you look at this clearly, the International Monetary Fund has announced its intentions to rescue Egypt from the harsh economic crisis which has been caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is actually following a request by the Egyptian authorities for support from the International Monetary Fund, which is estimated to implement the country's comprehensive economic program. the International Monetary Fund said that it will seek financial support for Egypt, which has been hit hard by the rise in commodity prices caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Egypt, which is heavily dependent on imports of wheat and sunflower oil from Russia and Ukraine, and has been hit hard by the current surge in commodity prices. Looking at the inflation rate, it actually reached 10% year on year in February, and this was mainly driven by a 20% rise in food prices. So inflation has actually been rising in Egypt since the launch of the International Monetary Fund-led reform program in November 2016. And the International Monetary Fund granted Cairo a loan of nearly 11 billion euros in exchange for drastic austerity measures, including a sharp devaluation and a review of the subsidized system for essential goods. The International Monetary Fund also approved a $5.4 billion aid package in 2020 to deal with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Ooh. So, still with Egypt, as I was saying that Egypt is actually having more of business news coming in. Egypt's currency loses 17% of its value ahead. Tough times for most of the African countries here. A lot of situations and scenarios happening from the East African community. Looking at the prices hiking highly, looking at commodity prices shooting up. Now, getting back to the Egyptian situation here, the Egyptian currency loses 17% of its value ahead. The prices of food are going up in many countries in North Africa and the Middle East and in the Gulf states. Let's just put that in that way. In Egypt, as we're in the month of Ramadan, the spending has increased and the local currency has lost 17% of its value. So when you look at Mohammed Khalid, one of the residents in Cairo, came out and said people's joy in coming Ramadan is different this year, and this is the second Ramadan after COVID. And he said some prices are rising a bit and are different from other places, not only in Cairo, but when you look at Cairo being the capital, when you look at the other states in Egypt, other provinces as well. So, but people are shopping because they are happy that Ramadan is here and that it is a once in a year season which arrives once annually. So, another resident in Dalia, Amir, confirmed that the increase in prices will definitely affect them. He says that the prices might be higher, but people are shopping for Ramadan goods, like every year, because they like to do something new and happy as they welcome Ramadan. So we're still in the period of Ramadan, but when the prices are still high, it still affects people who are actually dealing in the fasting period of Ramadan still. Now, Egypt is a leading importer of wheat from Ukraine and Russia. On the African continent, when you look at the countries that are actually importing more of the wheat, and during Ramadan, it is actually more of the wheat processed products that really matter. Look at wheat flour is always on market during Ramadan, even not only in Egypt, but also in Uganda here as well. So Egypt, which is a leading importer of wheat from Ukraine and Russia, so the conflict between the two countries is definitely affecting the supplies. So let's move on. The authorities have started implementing ways of stabilizing the economy, and the devaluation of the currency to the US dollar has come out to affect the Egyptians and has restricted the sales, as some goods are expensive while other prices are still fine. So you will find the most essential goods becoming very expensive because now the supply is low and the demand is quite high. And this also draws back to the situation that we're in last year, because if you're to date back, the increase of prices dates you back to April 2021. And that is when most of these prices were actually greatly increasing. The Egyptian government has already started talks at the International Monetary Fund over a new assistance package, and this is the third in 6 years. Still moving on with the SMB-ACROSS borders. Here we strongly look at the stories that are coming in and making headlines from the international scene. And this time around, we head to Rwanda. We are still on the African continent. Before I actually shoot up to actually see what is coming in from the international scene, but on the African continent, Rwanda is set to impose a tax on watching Netflix. Now, Netflix is a streaming platform for movies and series and all that. We've seen a number of Ugandans subscribing to Netflix here and there, and it has actually become a norm of a luxurious pride if someone actually has a Netflix account. Do I have one? No, not really. So now let's look at here. Rwanda is the latest African country to announce plans to tax online services consumed within the country. This comes a few months after Zimbabwe and Nigeria laid out plans for the collection of taxes from e-commerce and digital companies such as Netflix, Google, YouTube, and Amazon. According to the Rwanda Revenue Authority, the RRA, a proposal has been presented before the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning, and Economic Planning, from where it will undergo several procedures before implementation is approved. So, when you look at Jean-Louis Kaliningondo, who is the Deputy Commissioner General of the Rwanda Revenue Authority, said that when you pay for services such as Netflix, you are using money that you have generated in Rwanda. So we are asking, why don't we collect value-added tax on these services, yet they are being paid for by our citizens? If you pay $12 a month for Netflix, why don't we keep some of that amount at the source here? Because you're paying money that you're making from Rwanda and you're exporting it outside. So it's better, before exporting it to the other countries, it is taxed. So that is where the Rwandese government is coming in to actually impose a tax or a value-added tax on people watching and subscribing to Netflix. And you'll still see that other digital companies and e-commerce companies, where most of the Rwandese or the other African countries are actually going to tax more of these platforms to generate more of the revenue from them. A number of African countries have expanded the scope of their indirect taxes to cover digital services, but only a few have so far implemented some form of direct digital service taxes. When you look at some of the big principles about the VAT, is that it is paid to the country where the service is being consumed, because consuming a service and not paying tax to it is a disservice to that particular country. Then that means you're coming into the country, taking away money and not putting money in there. So these companies are fetching the money, taking the money out of Rwanda. So African governments still face a lot of criticism on their intention to tax the digital and online services. A recent case study is the unending controversial e-levy, which has caused a lot of confusion in the country. South Africa currently already taxes cryptocurrency trade and investment, and it's making plans to tax companies such as Netflix. So we have countries like South Africa who are already stepping up. Countries like Nigeria already took the step. Zimbabwe, same thing. Now Rwanda has followed suit. Okay, now let's sum up discussions of the SMB across borders as we head to China, as the Shanghai lockdown sees the economy shaken by zero COVID measures. When you look at from Tesla's gigafactory to a huge Disney resort, many multinational companies have their Chinese foothold in Shanghai. But in recent days, the usually busting financial center has been stopped in its tracks after a spike in coronavirus cases. With little notice, officials imposed a lockdown on the city's more than 26 million residents. And when you look at the restrictions, which started as a two-stage lockdown last week, have now been expanded to confine practically, and all residents are heading back to their homes. That is in Shanghai. And the Shanghai lockdown coming in as the second lockdown ever since the very first in 2020. China has another version, or is actually another wave of COVID-19, and this time around lockdowns in Shanghai are already up there and affecting the global supply chain in one way or the other for some of the African continents that are already benefiting or are already importing their goods from China. Now, the latest round of quarantining in China in China is China's largest since the coronavirus outbreak was first identified in Wuhan in the end of 2019. This lockdown could turn out to be particularly costly for the world's second largest economy, as well as being a major focus of the financial industry. Shanghai is a hub for semiconductor, electronics and car manufacturing, and it's also the world's busiest shipping port. So Zhu Taishen, China's economics intelligence unit, said short-term supply chains cause disruptions and will have an impact on China's economy as a whole. So on a more local level, the city known for its high-end store fronts like Gucci and Louis Vuitton have already seen consumer spending slump. So lost businesses at retailers. Let's look at Shanghai. Now, they've lost business at retailers. Hotels, restaurants could directly cost Shanghai at 3.7% of its annual gross domestic product, according to Mr. Zhu. Now, GDP is a key measure for the health or otherwise of an economy. And China's growth target, the Chinese government has set a target for the country's GDP to grow by 5.5% this year. But some analysts have said it will struggle to meet that goal because of this particular situation of COVID. At the end of last week, data pointed out to a slowdown in March for China's manufacturing and services sectors. It came after the technology sub Shenzhen and Jilin in China's industrial northeast last month also faced lockdowns so that officials could conduct mass coronavirus testing and try to curb the spread of the highly transmissible Omicron variant of COVID-19. Here, we've not yet felt the pitch of the Omicron variant, but China is still feeling it highly. Well, with the SMB across borders, that's all we've had for you. But clearly, after the break, we head into business tips and the business quotes. And also, we have more of the SMB reports and other details coming in from the world of business. Stick around with me. And then the SMB across borders, we're looking at some of those stories that are making headlines from the international scene. And when you look at clearly some of them, it is showing that there's going to be a slow pace of economic recovery for most of the countries in the world. Not necessarily because of COVID-19. Now, this time around, there are a lot of politics at play, poly-economic situations that have actually led to situations that may affect the global economic landscape. We do take a break. After it, we have the business tips and business quotes. Stick around.